All right, let's jump right into exploring this text. Today, we're taking a really close, contemplative look at an early Buddhist text that is remarkably brief, but honestly, it is incredibly dense. We're looking at the Mitta Sutta, also known as the Friend's Discourse. And what's so fascinating about this specific teaching is that it basically forces us to look right at our daily relationships and the actual practical responsibility we owe to the people closest to us.
Now, you know what's really brilliant about translator Bhikkhu Sujato's work on this text is the underlying mission. He's taking these ancient, sometimes intimidating teachings and pulling them right into the present. The goals were super straightforward. Use plain, approachable English, stick to consistent terminology, and deliver a highly accurate rendition of the original Pali. It's a real game changer because it completely removes that barrier of clunky, archaic language. We can connect directly with the Buddha's core message without needing, a massive academic dictionary sitting right next to us just to decode a single sentence.
To give you some quick context, this text is formally classified as SN 56.26, and it comes from the Saṃyutta Nikāya, which translates to the linked discourses. And we have to give a huge shout out to Sutta Central here. Because of their open source platform, we can read the modern English right alongside the ancient text. So we aren't just getting someone's watered down summary of the text in this explainer, we're actually digging right into the raw source material.
Right out of the gate, the Buddha opens by addressing the mendicants, the monks, and he gives them a highly specific set of instructions about sharing knowledge. He doesn't just say, hey, go out and preach to every random person you meet. Not at all. He lays out very strict parameters on exactly who we should be sharing our deepest wisdom with, and, absolutely crucial here, what our fundamental motivation should be for doing it.
He says we should focus our efforts entirely on those who you have sympathy for and those worth listening to. Friends and colleagues, relatives and family. Just pause and notice the profound intimacy of that. The target audience isn't a crowd of strangers on the street. It's the people we eat dinner with, the people we work next to, our families, which actually, let's be real, are sometimes the absolute hardest people to talk to about deep philosophical truths. And the motivation? It isn't a desire to prove you're right or show off how enlightened you are. The motivation is just pure, genuine sympathy.
And when you look at the original language, you can literally hear the rhythm of it. It goes, Mitta wa, amacha wa, nyati wa, salohita wa. That repeating va structure, that's by design. Long before any of this was ever written down, these teachings were part of an oral tradition. They were meant to be chanted, remembered, and just deeply internalized. It's almost like a catchy song cementing the absolute importance of our closest social bonds.
Okay, so we've got our inner circle, and we know we're engaging them out of pure sympathy. We are meant to encourage and support these folks. But what's the actual payload here? What is the core truth we are supposedly sharing with our friends and our coworkers?
Well, the text pivots right here with a really simple, direct question. What for? Or in Pali, katamezam chatunam. It's like the Buddha is making absolutely sure his listeners are totally locked in and paying attention before he drops the main teaching. And here it is, the absolute core of it all, the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha says we must establish our loved ones in understanding suffering, the exact origin of that suffering, its cessation, and finally, the specific practice that leads to that cessation. It's this beautifully logical step-by-step progression. You identify the problem, locate the cause, realize there's a way out, and then you do the work to reach the solution.
But this is where the interpersonal dynamic gets seriously demanding. You can't just hand your family a neat little list of these four truths and walk out of the room. Nope. The text explicitly states they must be actively encouraged, supported, and established in true comprehension. That implies a deep, lived, experiential understanding, not just a polite nod of agreement across the dinner table.
What's absolutely fascinating to me is how the text structurally loops right back on itself here. Once those four truths are laid out, it doesn't just move on to a totally new topic. Instead, it hits replay. It repeats the entire initial instruction, word for word, acting as this incredibly powerful mental anchor. The exact refrain returns. These friends and relatives should be encouraged, supported, and established by you in the true comprehension of these four noble truths. This kind of strategic repetition highlights the cyclical nature of Buddhist practice. It reminds us that sharing this wisdom, it isn't a one-and-done lecture. It's an active, continuous responsibility to the people you care about the most.
Right, so we know the who, we know the why, and we know the what. But we really need to look at the very last line of the text for the ultimate how. Because seriously, how do we ensure we're actually capable of providing this profound level of support?
The text wraps up with this mind-blowingly direct action item. It says, That's why you should practice meditation. Just let that sink in for a second. An entire deep discourse all about helping other people ends by pointing the finger directly back at you. It's basically saying we cannot possibly guide someone else to a true comprehension that we don't personally possess. Actually, scratch that. It's even stronger. It reveals that before we can truly encourage anyone else out there, we have to sit down and do the hard inner work ourselves.
Think of it like concentric circles radiating outward. Or, you know how on airplanes they always tell you to secure your own oxygen mask before assisting others? It's exactly like that. Your personal meditation practice, your own inner work, is that mandatory foundation at the absolute center. Without doing that first, you just literally don't have the capacity to act with true, effective sympathy toward your colleagues, your family, or anyone else in those outer circles.
So, I want to leave you with this final, intensely practical challenge straight from the source text. If you truly have sympathy for the people in your life, your friends, your family, and you genuinely want to help them navigate the suffering of life, are you actually dedicating the time to the inner meditation necessary to be of any real use to them?